Hello everyone, that's today's second video. So we've done the first GFS Weather Sunday roundup of the year, the first one since August actually, today. You can find that here on the homepage. Just scroll down a little bit and it's above Snow Desk. So it's a bit of a bumper edition to start us off. There's a lot to discuss in it, looking at things like solar activity and what's happening with the oceans, ENSO, all of that kind of thing, and weather next week's 10 days as well. So have a look, see what you think. It runs for over half an hour, so it's a bit of an extended one to start us off this year. This second video is going to be an Ensembles Watch. So you're going to have a look at the GFS Ensemble members, all 22, including the operational run of the GFS. And we'll see what it's showing as we're going into the middle part of January with these ensemble members. Got a lot of uncertainty for as early as around Thursday, Friday. We've got high pressure over Scandinavia, we've got low pressure in the Atlantic. The two air masses are battling it out for ascendancy, and we'll see what the GFS ensembles are making of that battle for tonight's second video update. There has been developments in terms of the stratosphere as well. I'll talk about that at the end of the Ensembles Watch. We're going to begin with the GFS operational run. This is the midday operational run of the GFS. This is the run that is the primary run of the model, if you like, run at the highest resolution. And then all other ensemble members are sort of run at a lower resolution. May all have slightly different starting conditions as well. So this is how the operational run is looking at the GFS. This is just updated in the past hour or so. Beginning on Thursday, you can see the battle that's going on Thursday. So there's the high pressure over Scandinavia at 1,030 millibars. That wants to get winds into the east. Give us a cold easterly wind, but we've got low pressure in the Atlantic that's trying to bring these westerlies and our typical winter rain-bearing systems off the Atlantic Ocean. So we begin on Thursday. Let's have a run through and see what happens. And we go up to Friday and Saturday, and the high pressure is still there over Scandinavia, albeit being pushed back with time. As we go into next weekend, this is Sunday the 14th, we find that low pressure is deepening around Iceland. So we're bringing a band of wet and windy weather here across the country on Monday the 14th, gale force winds and heavy rain. Once that clears out of the way, we've broken down that Scandinavian high very quickly, and now we're off and running into a much more mobile type pattern, albeit quite cold. The air coming around this area of low pressure is pretty cold, certainly cold enough to be bringing snow to northern and western parts of the country. As we go into the extended range of the GFS, just keep this low pressure close to the country, bringing sort of showers, longer spells of rain, sleet. Also, you follow the isobars back, the air is originating from quite a long way north around this trough. Albeit with a fairly long sea trek, so it's moderated, but it's quite a cold, unsettled situation there as we're going into the second half of January. And another area of wet weather, low pressure, sweeps in on the 22nd of January. That's how we finish up. So it looks like we're gradually starting to reduce the zonal flow a little bit there by the 23rd of January. Maybe the Atlantic is starting to run out of steam a little bit, but still quite unsettled and fairly chilly, especially so up in the north. So that was how the midday operational GFS was looking. What about the other ensemble members? This is the control of the GFS ensembles control member. So this is a slightly lower resolution compared to the operational run, but it's at a higher resolution compared to all other ensemble members. Then we're beginning on Thursday, and we've got a ridge of high pressure bridging through the country on Thursday. There's the Scandinavian high, of course, up there to our northeast. What's going to happen as we go into the end of the week and the weekend? Well, the high pressure is stronger here with the control GFS. So this area of low pressure is being blocked down here. And actually, we are almost turning the winds into an easterly there on Saturday the 13th of January. But then the low pressure is deepening around Iceland, similar to what happened with the operational GFS. So it turns unsettled and cold as well as this low pressure pushes through the country. It's unsettled, it's cold, there could well be snow up across the northern parts of the country, and then that low pressure sort of slipping down over the country as we go into the second half of the month. This is taking us to Friday the 19th of January, when the low pressure is pushed into Central Europe, and we're pulling in a cold northeasterly wind. So wind is backing into the east eventually, just doing it by a different sort of route there. Then we're going into the extended part of model low pressure coming back in from off the Atlantic Ocean, and that's how we finish up in quite a mobile pattern. Notice again though, winds are back into the northwest even at the end of a run on Tuesday 23rd of January. We're pulling down quite cold air with those northwesterlies once again. Ensemble member number 1 starts off with high pressure over Scandinavia and low pressure in the Atlantic. Let's run through and see what happens. So that high pressure, it stays in control over Scandinavia through the weekend, through next weekend. Almost getting wind into the east, but just not quite managing to do it. And then this low pressure is coming in from off the Atlantic, so turning increasingly unsettled and stormy. Really windy there as we go through into the second half of January. Quite cold air coming around that low pressure as well, and then that's how we finish up. Still looking pretty unsettled with ensemble member number 1. Ensemble member number 2 shows high pressure reaching through the country on Thursday. There's the Scandinavian high up to our northeast. We go into the weekend, next weekend, 13th, 14th, and low pressure increasingly coming in from off the Atlantic. This high pressure Scandinavia is not budging, it's still there. As we go into the 15th, we find it's turned quite stormy, but these low pressures still not quite able to get rid of that high pressure. Going through up to the second half of the month, it's taking us to Friday the 19th, very unsettled, quite cold as well. Finally, the Scandinavian high is budging a little bit. And as we go through to the end of the run, we finish quite mobile with the winds coming in from the west. This is ensemble member number 3, and we start off again quite a strong ridge of high pressure over Scandinavia. The winds are in from the east just about on Thursday. Let's see what happens with this one. So this one has a high pressure over Scandinavia, much stronger. It has actually got us into an easterly wind there by the time we get through to Sunday the 14th. The winds are backed into the east, bringing quite cold air in from the east. Then this area of low pressure is coming up against this ridge on the 14th, next Sunday, a week away. That's probably bringing heavy snow into western parts of the country as that low pressure comes up against the block. And the blocking high pressure is winning this. So as we go into Tuesday the 16th, you see the low pressure is slipping away to our south. The winds are in from the east. That looks cold and wintry there as we're going into the second half of the month. The winds properly in from the east, so the Scandinavian high wins the battle for a time anyway with ensemble member number 3, before eventually it does start to get broken down, and then we go off into a more sort of mobile pattern. But for a time it does get really cold and potentially quite snowy there from next weekend onwards with ensemble member number 3. This ensemble member number 4, this has high pressure over Scandinavia and the wind in from the east on Thursday. We get a proper easterly there as we go through into weekend. So even now, at this late stage, we're talking about Thursday, and we're Sunday day, even now, this easterly potential, the Scandinavian high, is not sorted out. There is still the possibility, though the operational run of the GFS didn't do it, there is still the possibility that we might get some sort of easterly coming up at the end of the week and next weekend. This is Monday, the 15th of January, and the high pressure is still there over Scandinavia. It's still blocking off the Atlantic. An area low pressure, if you was watching, has moved south of the country, possibly taking some snow across the country as well. As we go to Wednesday the 17th, low pressure coming in off the Atlantic, turning quite unsettled, stormy, and a little bit cold. The high pressure is never really going from Scandinavia as we're going into extended part of the GFS. On some number 4, we find that low pressure is coming in off the Atlantic. That's another one that has a high pressure over Scandinavia, winning for a time at the end of the week and next weekend. Ensemble member number 5 looks like that. High pressure regime through the country on Thursday. And this one's bringing the Atlantic in much more easily. So this one is like what the operational GFS is doing, turning stormy over the weekend, next weekend, and eventually quite cold too, with those northwesterly winds coming back. We find that as we go into the extended part of Ensemble member number 5, it stays very unsettled and quite cold at times as well. Winds are turning into the north. That's how we finish up with Ensemble member number 5. Winds in from a northerly direct. So although it breaks down the Scandinavian high much quicker than Ensemble member, actually in the extended run, it is quite cold with several northerly outbreaks. Ensemble member number 6 looks like that. Winds are in from the east on Thursday, and as we go through into next weekend, low pressure coming into those easterly winds from the Atlantic. Again, this is another one that's breaking down that Scandinavian high quite quickly. This looks stormy as we're going into next weekend, and then up to Monday the 15th. Quite cold, quite stormy. Conditions coming through then. The low pressure then starts to slide away to our south, and winds are turning back into the east again, all caused by the fact that the high pressure over Scandinavia never truly goes, even now at this point, Friday 19th January, there's still a bit of a ridge up over Scandinavia, and also the jet stream's on a more southerly track as well. The extended range finds low pressure coming back in from the Atlantic into the second half of January. That's how we finish up on Tuesday 23rd of January, as far as we can go. We're on some member number 6, high pressure ridging through the country, and again the stretch is still there, but heights are relatively high over Scandinavia and backing into western Russia as well. Somewhere number 7 looks like that. High pressure through Scandinavia on Thursday, and then we find low pressure coming in next weekend, bringing wet and windy and eventually quite cold weather as we head into the start of the following week. This looks cold and unsettled as well, with these low pressures digging down across the country. Notice the high pressure is still there over Scandinavia by the time we get through to Thursday the 18th, Friday the 19th of January, for example, still blocking off these areas of low pressure. They're not taking their normal route. They're still bringing unsettled weather, but quite cold temperatures coming in with those areas of low pressure. And that's how we finish up with Ensemble member number 7. That looks like it's getting into quite a blocked and really quite cold situation there by the time you go through into the second half of January. A lot of these Ensemble members are suggesting chance of cold and snow at some point in the next couple of weeks. This is Ensemble member number 8. Again, high pressure is dominating across Scandinavia on Thursday. The wind is in from the east. We go through into the end of the week and at the start of next and into the weekend, next weekend, and high pressure remains in control over Scandinavia. These areas of low pressure are being blocked by that ridge that's up to the northeast. This is bringing wet weather, possibly some snow in with that as well, because there's cold air coming behind these low pressures as well. That's the other thing, cold air coming from the northern Atlantic. So if these fronts get blocked by the Scandinavian high, although we may start off with rain initially, if that cold air undercuts the weather fronts, I think that's what's going on here on Tuesday, 16th of January. If that cold air undercuts weather fronts, it does give us the chance of some snow. We go into the second half of the month. We keep low pressure close to the country. Looks really very unsettled with Ensemble member number 8 to end the run. Ensemble member number 9 has high pressure over Scandinavia on Thursday. That high pressure temporarily does get wind into the east there next weekend, and that low pressure coming up against that area of high pressure and sort of slipping away, so it has a go at bringing westerlies, but doesn't quite come off. Then more low pressure reinforces it, and that does break the Atlantic through. Then as we go into the second half of the month, we go into an unsettled and westerly phase. This is number 10, has high pressure over Scandinavia on Thursday. The wind is coming from an easterly direction. And this continues into next weekend as well. Generally quite calm and cold into next weekend. And then the Atlantic starts to move in, so it turns stormy Monday the 15th to Tuesday the 16th. And quite cold as well, with those areas of low pressure diving southwards across the country. Notice high pressure, even in the extended range of this ensemble member, is still in towards Scandinavia as well. This one turns very unsettled and quite cold too from around Monday the 15th onwards. Number 11 looks like that. The high pressure over Scandinavia on Thursday, and then we bring these areas of low pressure into that. This one is pushing away that high pressure a lot quicker, kind of similar to what the operational run is doing. So it turns stormy and cold next weekend. But then, look at this, the heights are building back to the north again by Wednesday the 17th. This low pressure is slipping southwards, the wind's turning into the east. That looks like it's becoming very wintry, some heavy snow in with that into the second half of January. There are various options on the table here for the middle and second half of January, and a lot of them are looking cold and potentially quite snowy. Just depends exactly how it plays out, but there are several scenarios and routes to cold and snowy conditions in the middle and second half of January that are playing out here with these ensemble members. This is number 12, and this one is bringing the Atlantic in quite quickly next weekend, and what it does, eventually it turns quite stormy and cold again by day 10. That's day 10, Wednesday 17th of January. Then that low pressure clears away, leaves us in a cold northerly wind, more low pressure coming in off the Atlantic. That one's not as cold as some of the other ones, but there are a couple of cold snaps in there, and it does turn quite stormy by day 10. This is number 13. It has high pressure over Scandinavia on Thursday. Low pressure is coming in off the Atlantic, but it's being blocked by that ridge to the northeast, so it's sliding away to our south. This one's a little bit different compared to what the other ensemble members are doing for next weekend. Eventually we go into quite a stormy sort of spell of weather, and this one's a bit milder as well as we're going into the second half of January. There's no real cold snaps coming through with that one. Ensemble member number 13 is a bit of a milder one. This is number 14. It has the winds in from the east on Thursday, and then as we go into next weekend, we find that high pressure continues to dominate through to next weekend over Scandinavia. So winds remain slack and from an easterly direction up to Sunday the 14th of January. Before low pressure starts to push in from off the Atlantic, it turns quite stormy, and then it turns a little bit colder as well as we go through into the second half of the month. Keep low pressure piling in from off the Atlantic Ocean. Then we start to strengthen heights to our south. So we finish up. This is the first one that showed anything really mild. This is pushing the air up from the Azores by Tuesday the 23rd of January as heights rise over France and Spain. But that hasn't shown up much yet with many of these ensemble members. You have to say most of these ensemble members are at the very least looking quite cold, and a lot of them are producing snow. That one finished on a very mild note. This is number 15. High pressures over Scandinavia on Thursday. Low pressure trying to come in next weekend. It is being blocked. Its path is being blocked by that ridge to the east. We're going into Monday the 15th. Now there's low pressure coming in from the west. It's stalling across the country. There's cold air following it, so that might be some sort of snow. You'd have to look at the exact parameters of these ensemble members to see which one of them are producing snow and which one of them are producing rain. But I think a lot of these are probably producing at least some wintry weather. We go through into just a little bit beyond day 10. This takes us to Thursday the 18th, and that low pressure has moved off to the east. We've got high pressure to our north and northeast. The winds are coming around from the north to northeast, so that looks cold and very wintry there, I would have thought, as we're going into the second half of January. We cut that off quite quickly, bring low pressure back in from the Atlantic, albeit again fairly chilly with those areas of low pressure, the winds in from the north as we end the run. Ensemble member number 16, the high pressure dominating over Scandinavia on Thursday. Let's run you through and see what becomes of this ensemble member. So low pressure is trying to get in off the Atlantic, but it is being blocked by these areas of high pressure to our northeast. So eventually we're turning the winds to the east there as we're going up to Wednesday 17th of January, day 10. The high pressure is winning the battle. Winds have gone into the east and it would be mostly dry but quite cold. Then more low pressure coming in off the Atlantic in the extended part, turning very unsettled, quite stormy, and still not overly mild either. With number 16. Number 17 looks like that on Thursday. The high pressure is being pushed back into Western Russia quite quickly. So low pressure comes in from off the Atlantic. So this one's similar to what the operational GFS is doing. Turns quite stormy and cold over weekend into the start of the following week. And then we keep these cold and stormy conditions going as we move into the second half of January. That's how we finish up. Again, low pressure dominating off the Atlantic, but heights remain relatively high up to the northeast. Number 18 looks like that. High pressure over Scandinavia on Thursday. They all agree on that. It's just how much influence that high pressure over Scandinavia has. We go into Monday the 15th, and it's turning quite stormy. And this one's a little bit different. This is a milder one, significantly so, with high pressure generally centering more to our south. So no cold snaps coming through with that ensemble member number 18. It's generally quite mild and also fairly unsettled as well. Number 19 and penultimately looks like this. High pressure is to our east and northeast as we're going into the end of the coming week, and then we go up to the weekend of 14th, 15th, turning things unsettled. So no easterly with this one. It looks very stormy as we're heading up towards day 10. Cold and stormy conditions with that area of low pressure. Then that gets out of the way. We keep more low pressure piling in from off the Atlantic. That's another one that doesn't do anything all that cold, number 19. And then finally we're up to number 20, and that's how it's looking on Friday, and we go through to the weekend of the 13th, 14th January, turning things stormy and unsettled. We keep things looking very unsettled up to day 10 and beyond day 10. Quite cold, unsettled, and fairly stormy conditions continuing. That's how we finish up. Again, notice high pressure remains somehow or other clinging on around Scandinavia and back into western parts of Russia, albeit up to the end of that ensemble member number 20, we're still in a flat westerly flow. So what we can say about these ensemble members is that many of them are showing wintry conditions for around the middle and second half of January. They are differing in the way they're doing it. There are a few ensemble members that don't do anything wintry, but they're in the minority. Most of these ensemble members are showing wintry conditions, either from the easterly wind blocking off these areas of low pressure. There are several ensemble members that are doing that, or they just sink this low pressure from Iceland down across the UK and eventually turn winds into the north. So although we don't get an easterly, we do by day 10 on many of these ensemble members find ourselves with cold northerlies. But I still wouldn't give up on the chance of easterly winds actually at some point in the next sort of week to 10 days. There are enough ensemble members there that want to strengthen that high pressure over Scandinavia at the end of the coming week. But anything from around Thursday, Friday onwards, I think is still coming with a very large health warning. I would expect further changes actually, even within sort of a 5 to 7 day time frame. I would expect further changes over the next 2 or 3 days. So don't give up on the easterly yet, but if we don't get the easterly, there are several routes towards getting cold and wintry conditions around the middle of the month going into the second half of January. Then finally, I just want to leave you with what's happening in the stratosphere. So this is the stratospheric temperature forecast over the North Pole from tonight's operational GFS. I'll be talking about this a little bit in videos just recently. We have been hinting, but we might get a sudden stratospheric warming. So we're starting on the 16th of January. I'm just going to very quickly run you through. Look what happens. We get this big warming starting around Europe and into Russia on the 20th of January. The yellow and green colours are appearing. And very quickly, look at this. We lift those temperatures up. That's how it finishes up. On the 23rd of January, we have got red colours appearing in the stratosphere over sort of Siberia, and that will start to penetrate into the North Pole. That is what a sudden stratospheric warming looks like. If that came off, then all bets are going to be off as we go through into the latter stages of the winter. That's a major warming event that's taking place there. It would almost certainly produce some sort of extensive blocking if it came off over the North Pole. Exactly where that blocking sits is the critical factor, but that could take us into some very cold conditions potentially as we get through to the end of January and into the early part of February. Now, that's right at the extended range of tonight's operational GFS, and as with all the other output at the very end of the GFS model runs, it is unreliable. But the hints have been there for a few days, actually. For several days, there have been hints that we're probably facing some sort of major warming event in the stratosphere sometime. May not happen on that exact day, but I would suggest sometime in the final 10 days of January, we are very likely to see a significant warming of the stratosphere. And it'll be a case of just seeing what the impacts of that might be. But even without that, because that's after most of what we've been looking at on this update. So even before that, we've got very interesting weather, and we're doing okay, really, for cold, wintry conditions for this winter. So just keep checking back and watching this space, because it's a very different winter, this, compared to any winter that we've had so far since 2012-13. I'll certainly be expecting more cold and snow, maybe quite a bit of it actually in the second half of the winter. So I'll keep checking back for more. Right, that's all for now. Thanks for watching.